Welcome to AI for a Better World. Today we're asking a simple question with big stakes. Can AI help create decent work, build the green and blue skills we need, and move us toward the 2030 goals? My guest is Ambassador Shea Gopaul, Permanent Representative to the United Nations for the International Organization of Employers and co-chair of the UN Business and Industry Major Group, representing 50 million companies in 150 plus countries. Shea also founded GAN Global, which mobilized millions of earn and learn opportunities. Shea, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, Kathy.
Perfect timing for this conversation. Let's start with wins families can feel soon. Can AI deliver decent work gains fast and fairly, especially for vulnerable workers and communities? Where could you see early wins in public services and employment, say in weeks or months versus years?
So as I said, Kathy, I'm delighted to be with you. And as you know, this is really my passion, is the whole area of jobs and skills. So I think there's enormous potential. We're seeing many companies, countries, industries embracing AI. So the technology is there. We're excited about it. But let's look at the reality. 2.5 to 2.6 billion people, that's 35% of the world's population, is without access to the internet. So what does that mean? These least developed countries do not have electricity. They don't have access to the internet, let alone a computer. So there's a disadvantage there. But also gender, the gender lens. Girls and women are at a disadvantage. They are not taking as many of the STEM courses that they need, but also often they don't have the basic education and they're working at a disadvantage in the workplace. Once you get the infrastructure there, and what I call the hard infrastructure, which is basically the access to the internet and electricity, the soft infrastructure, skills, education is lacking. But then remember one other thing, in many countries, AI takes high energy, needs, and it consumes a lot. So yes, there's a problem there. But there are some really quick wins. I think particularly in the administrative tasks, there's a lot that is being automated. Productivity is up in certain industries, and job matching and skill forecasting is another area where we see some really great wins. So the quick wins are in speed, cost, and coverage. However, we still need to be looking at strong governance. And that's something where everyone is struggling with. The UN has designed this, the Global Digital Compact. They're looking at global governance around AI, and there's lots of work to be done on that area.
Let me just stop you there. The big question I think people keep asking is which jobs, and you started to touch on them there. Which new roles are growing across health, education, small business, public services? 3 to 5 that are hiring now or really soon.
Okay, so if you look at the ILO statistics, the key area where job growth is really very important is in the health sector, the care economy. There's huge potential in that area. So many young people are learning, being trained in many different environments around the healthcare sector. But if you look at LinkedIn and more the higher level jobs, LinkedIn has done a whole analysis, very interesting report that they've done on green skills. And we see, for instance, in waste management, solar, wind technology, but not only learning and designing the technology, but also in the sort of maintenance of these products. Again, this is what we call the just transition. Older workers are in the work environment. Their jobs are in a certain sector. They need to be trained on these new skills. And there's why the earn and learn model becomes very interesting.
Let's continue on that track and talk about how people actually get these new jobs. From your GAN Global lens, what apprenticeship and earn and learn models fit the AI economy, especially for SMEs? How do we lower barriers for small employers and young people?
when we were looking at a lot of those apprenticeships, we were talking about 2-3 year programs because it's linked to young people leaving the work environment at 16 years old and taking on an apprenticeship. Today, apprenticeships and earn and learn programs are changing dramatically. So what we're seeing is registered apprenticeships, sometimes 3 to 6 months apprenticeships, where they're really focusing on coaching young people. They're putting them into the pipeline where the juniors can often work with the older workers and really trying to bring up the skills. You're also seeing, particularly with SMEs, sort of these pooled apprenticeships. So you might get one industry that's working together, they're pulling it together, and often SMEs don't have the resources nor the time to mentor and teach a young person or an older worker. And so they're often depending on these sort of cohorts by industry where they're doing these sort of models. So again, it's all about public-private partnerships coming together, working together. You're earning, you're getting your certificate, you're learning, and it's a win-win for everyone.
Privacy, bias, and exclusion as AI scales. How do we prevent? What simple safeguards, governance, and partnerships keep it aligned with human rights and decent work?
Privacy, fairness, decent work principles are absolutely key. However, in order to do this, from design to operation, you must have clear risk ownership. Who owns this, and how are we going to ensure that the right people at the right time have access to the right information? You need to have a practical governance blueprint, I would say. You have to have safeguards, particularly when you're implementing these programs. You have to have KPIs to monitor it. You need the governments, business associations, employers, federations, by industries. It could be the insurance industry. It could be the care industry. You need to have SMEs at the table because everyone designs often some of these programs for the large companies in mind, implement something and make sure they're doing the right thing. You also need to have the workers around the table and also the vendors. So that human in loop kind of community to me is really, really key. Transparency, making sure you're explaining in simple language to the employees and the employers what you're doing. But also I think third-party auditing, independent auditing can be really critical.
Lots of pilots, too few at scale. From your view, what truly reaches system-level impact? What should we sunset? Focus on what works.
Well, Kathy, me long enough that I've often said this and I sometimes get criticized, but there's lots of money out there to be used for these learning and skilling programs. But are we using it wisely? The first thing that comes to mind is we are often designing these programs without ever speaking to the employers who have to employ these young people. They can go to scale because what's scale? Scale is you get the right skills, but also you get hired and you get employed. So that link between the employers is really key. The other thing is funding models. I find that there are a lot of great ideas and then the money runs out. So then I go back to these portable credentials and sort of really looking at these credit pathways. I think we really need to look at the data better, but I think key is keep employers engaged, make sure you're measuring what you're doing, and make sure you bring the right stakeholders around the table. The last thing I would say is we often get bogged down on technical skills. When you talk to some of these IT companies in the tech, they're talking about what is critical for them, and this mindset and training young people with the human skills. This is about collaboration, lifelong learning, knowing that I don't know my job skills for the next 3 years, but you know what? I'm going to learn, and I'm good at that thirst for learning.
Great answer. I want to stay on skills just a moment longer. Green, blue skills. How do we scale green, blue skills fast? Clear rules, real upskilling for SMEs and the informal economy. Where can AI help most right now?
It's a heavy question. So first of all, let me start with I'm going to be going off to Brazil next week. I'll be discussing what we call the just transition from the skills of yesterday to the bluer, greener skills of tomorrow. Fewer than 40% of the countries have actually put skills and skills development into their NDCs. So that means we have a problem. They know it's important, but they haven't put it into their plans. What does that mean? Fail to plan, you're not going to deliver, you're not going to have the resources. If this is not a priority, you won't put the resources in. These training programs that are linked to the earn and learn model, the recognition of prior skills and learning. So you need mentorship. You need this sort of reverse mentorship where the young person's working with the older person. I think we need to look at different sort of levers for employers like wage subsidies to make sure that they have the resources and a levy. I think we need to help SMEs in the informal economy. When we talk about the informal sector, you're talking about 60% globally jobs that are informal sector. What does that mean, informal? They're not registered. They're not paying taxes. Sub-Saharan Africa, it's 90%. So how are we going to get to these workers who have no social protection? That means no access to health, along with the informal side, but also SMEs. We need to be looking at legislation, regulatory frameworks, which are easy for SMEs to implement. And often that is not the case. I think jobs and skills are critical to the 2030 agenda. And that's how we're going to eradicate a lot of poverty and bring young people as well as older workers back into the job market and to have really a good life for their family as well as themselves.
Great. Shea, thank you. Thank you for the clarity and the roadmap.
You're welcome. I totally enjoyed the subject, so have a great afternoon.
For our audience, pick one next step today. Start an earn and learn track, add a short skills module, or put one safeguard in place before you deploy AI. I'm Kathy Rubin. This is AI for a Better World. See you next time.